When did Citi Field become an absolute house of horrors for the Phillies?
There's one moment that I go back to. It's 2022. The Mets are 20-7 at Citi Field against the Phillies going back to 2022. That includes the NLDS in 2024. I go back to that Nick Plummer game-tying home run in the ninth inning, that Sunday night game. I think it's Memorial Day weekend. Eduardo Escobar had the walk-off hit. The Mets dominated the Phillies in 2022. Both home and away. They had the huge comeback in May of 2022 on the road. And then August of that year, the Mark Canha game, if you recall.
The combined no-hitter.
And this week, the Mets in the first encounter with the Phillies after the postseason matchup, sweeping the Phillies 18-7, 5 games up. They have held Bryce Harper at bay, Kyle Schwarber at bay, Nick Castellanos at bay. The Phillies, for whatever reason, when they come to Citi Field, it's not going on. And the Mets at Citi Field, they've got it all going on.
Get out the broomsticks. The Mets just took 3 from the Phillies, swept an entire homestand. I'm Vito Calise. That's Jonathan Barron. And this is Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. And Citi Field is the most electric I've ever seen it.
Do you remember, I think 2 episodes ago, the Mets lost that getaway day game to the Twins, and we're talking, feeling a little bit upset, Mets Twitter, feeling a little bit down for a bit. Man, that feels like a long time ago. That was, by the way, the last time the Mets lost. They have a perfect 7-0 homestand. Like you mentioned, they sweep the Phillies. The people that had mentioned, oh, the Mets haven't played any good teams yet. Well, they just swept the Philadelphia team that's been a perennial playoff team the last couple of years. I think we see the Phillies have some flaws. I don't want to focus too much on them. It's more about the Mets who continue to roll, the fans who continue to show out. 36,000 fans packing Citi Field on April 23rd, a 1 o'clock Wednesday game. The Mets treating them to their 3rd walk-off victory of the season already, tied for the most in baseball. 3 very different games. Game 1 of the series, Francisco Lindor puts on an absolute show. Game 2, the Mets play a little small ball to push across 5 runs. And of course, Game 3, this really tight back and forth game where you woke up on Wednesday morning. The Mets had the series already in hand. And you can go one of 2 ways. You could feel greedy and say, I want that sweep. Or you could say, all right, you know what? If they lose this game today, Zach Wheeler's on the mound for Philly. It's a hungry team over there. You know, if the Mets walk away with 2 or 3, it is what it is. But when you go back to the first outcome and the victory on Wednesday, that would have put and did put the Mets at 18-7. And I know it's early, but it has to be said, they're 5 games up in the NL East right now. That is the biggest division lead in all of baseball. And by taking care of business, that's where they are at. This has been a dream start and a complete 180 from what we saw last year at this time.
Yeah, man, and you talk about the division lead, and I know it's early to say this too, but at the time of this recording, the best record in all of baseball, which when's the last time the Mets could say that, even this early in the season?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that'll come and go. The Dodgers play Wednesday night. Yeah,
but still, it's just like, when has this team ever been in a point to be like that, especially when you have a team that is like the Dodgers, who everybody thought could win like 120 games this year? Where the Mets have put themselves is insane. And like you said, dude, it's a Wednesday at 1 o'clock in April. And this place is more packed than it was for 80% of the year last year.
There's a lot to be surprised about, I think, but also maybe we shouldn't be so surprised, because if you go back to June 1st of last season, the Mets are far and beyond the best team in the National League East when it comes to cumulative record. I know it's a different season, teams change, things change, but the Mets have been doing this since June, and they went on the NLCS run last year. They beat the Phillies in 4 games. They honestly could have swept the Phillies because they could have won that game 2 at Citizens Bank Ballpark. Yeah. So this should come as no surprise for Mets fans, for baseball fans. I think Major League Baseball is on notice, and this Mets team is going to have a day off on Thursday, and then they're going to have the reinforcements we've been talking about, looking forward to on Friday, with Jeff McNeil, Francisco Alvarez set to return. And again, we keep talking about Frankie Montas, who threw in the outfield during this series, and Sean Manaea, who was all over the place. We heard a lot about Sean as the glue guy in our interview with Griffin Canning, and you saw him on SNY on Tuesday night, having a good time in the dugout. So.
You only saw that Griffin Canning interview if you were here, though.
Oh, that's right. It's not out yet, but it will be soon.
I'm thinking Monday.
All right.
You know why? Because it's that weird thing where it's a 4-game homestand going through Monday.
Right.
Not homestand,
the 4-game trip. You got the 4 o'clock game on Monday, a little day baseball, a little day action.
So what better way to wake up Monday? Griffin Canning's on the bump at 4. Wake up and watch the Griffin Canning interview.
It's good producing. But A lot to get to here, a lot to break down from this series. So, Vito, let's get into
the top 5 moments of Mets Phillies presented by PC Richard & Son. Number 5, we are going to go with Francisco Lindor's leadoff home run from Game 1.
Yeah, I mean, Lindor swinging a very hot bat, has tormented the Philadelphia Phillies going back to last season. Had the walk-off on Friday, hits the leadoff homer on Sunday, and then another leadoff home run on Monday to set the tone against Aaron Nola, who was really the biggest arm the Phillies were throwing out in this series. Nola has had an issue with the long ball, and the Mets have had his number also recently, going back to the end of last season. For Lindor to hit that home run, set the tone, hits another one on Monday night. He is having an incredible start to this season. I don't know what else to say about Francisco Lindor. And to have him atop the lineup, doing it, getting the boys going, getting this series started in the right tone. I know there was a lot of anticipation about Mets-Phillies leading up to Monday, and couldn't have asked for a better start, courtesy of Francisco Lindor. The number 4 moment, Mets-Phillies, Luis Torrens giving the Mets insurance runs on Tuesday night with a big 2-strike hit, blowing that game open, making it 5-1, not a save situation anymore, and Torrens coming through once again. He has been so clutch all season long, stepping up in the absence of Francisco Alvarez. And Vito, I loved the bat spike by Luis Torrens running up the first base line, got the job done, celebrating, spiking the bat. What a moment for Luis Torrens.
Number 3 moment, Griffin Canning staring down Nick Castellanos, and what's he do? He gets the strikeout. Place goes absolutely wild, and the Mets continue to own the Phillies.
Yeah, Canning, a bases-loaded jam. That was likely his last batter, wound up being his last batter of the game. And he made Castellanos look foolish. Threw him 3 pitches that weren't in the strike zone, but that's a good scouting report, a good job by the Mets, a good game plan by Luis Torrens and Griffin Canning, getting him with the slider. It's Canning's one of his best pitches. He dominated with the pitch on Tuesday night, and it helped him out in a big spot there. Number 2, Juan Soto's throw to gun out Nick Castellanos to end the top of the 8th inning on Wednesday. This game on Wednesday in particular was truly a game of inches. Could have gone either ways. You could tell how much the fans in both dugouts wanted to win this game. And for Juan Soto to come up with that huge throw and Hayden Sanger to receive the throw up the first base line and apply the tag. What a moment. Juan Soto, we talked about wanting to win a Gold Glove when he came to the Mets. His arm, quietly one of the best outfield arms in baseball, on display on Wednesday.
Also, the psychological thing that he did to Castellanos for the remainder of the game, because once that happened, Castellanos was not ready to run after that. Every single sac fly attempt after that, he didn't even think about going home. So just the effect that had going down and Juan Soto having that moment, absolutely electric. But there is no doubt, top moment, Starling Marte steps up, walks off the Phillies that entire 10th inning. That entire game. Place goes crazy. I love Citi Field.
Yeah, for Marte, 12th career walk-off RBI. We saw the walk-off RBI he had in the Subway Series a couple years ago. It's been a different hero for the Mets all the time. We saw that in this series. We saw that against the Cardinals. The Mets have so many guys that can get it done. Such incredible depth on Wednesday. It was Starling Marte who delivers the walk-off single. Pete Alonso scoring after he tied the game against Jordan Romano with a huge double. What a victory for the Mets, who sweep the Philadelphia Phillies, and vibes could not be any higher at Citi Field.
And this is a tough series because this was the first one truly where the top 5 was actually really hard to do. So we got to do some honorable mentions right now because there were so many other moments in this game, and one that I'm going to bring up off the bat. We talked about Juan Soto's assist, but I thought Tyrone Taylor's was going to make the top 5 without a doubt. That deke to throw out at home. He talked after the game. I forgot who he said that he learned it from.
Jackie Bradley, going back to his time in Milwaukee. Yeah, so Kyle Schwarber, a Major League veteran who, kind of surprised that Schwarber got deked by Tyrone Taylor, especially on a ball that had a lot of loft on it. Off the bat, didn't really look like it had a chance to fall, but Tyrone Taylor, an absolute masterclass and an absolute cannon. And how about Pete Alonso keeping his foot on the bag, making a scoop? A very underrated part of Pete Alonso's game.
Yeah.
We know he's off to an MVP type start with the bat, but there is no one in baseball better at making scoops on throws across the diamond, and in this case, a throw from the outfield to keep runners off the base after Schwarber had a leadoff walk there for Ryan Stanek to instantly have 2 outs, nobody on. That was massive. What a job by Tyrone Taylor. Like you mentioned, this series was chock full of huge moments. That's why the Mets go on to sweep the series. And how about Tyler Megill? Let's talk about Tyler Megill on Monday night. 10 strikeouts for Megill, matches a career high, had the four-seam fastball working, 6 of 10 strikeouts, called third strikes. You don't see that often. We've talked about that with some guys. Another upcoming interview, Jeremy Hefner and Griffin Canning, we talked about that. The sequencing, keeping hitters off balance. Tyler Megill was doing just that on Monday night. A brilliant outing for Megill, who continues to dominate. And the Mets continue to win when Tyler Megill takes the bump.
And we got to talk about the pitching. Let's talk about the bullpen. Edwin Diaz walks off with an injury that we don't have much information on yet. But Max Kranick comes in a tough spot, gets out of a bases loaded jam to only keep one run on the board. And in extra innings, that one run, you have to go into it thinking it's almost guaranteed that you're probably going to give up a run in that extra inning. Max Kranick to come in against that Phillies lineup and get out of it and keep the Mets in a position to win. Man, I mean, that kid is nails.
Yeah, Kranick has stranded 9 of the 10 inherited runners that he has inherited this season. He gets Stott. And another great throw by Soto there to not allow a runner to score. We saw that a couple times in the second inning. Soto made a strong throw home to keep a runner at third base. Base running was a really big thing that stood out to me in this series. The Phillies had some real base running blunders throughout the series. And the Mets, we talked about it with Mendy this past Sunday. The Mets have been one of the best base running teams in all of baseball. If you look at BSR on Fangraphs, it's an all-encompassing base running statistic that accounts for stolen bases, taking the extra base, so on and so forth. The Mets rank 4th in this category. There was one instance that really stood out to me on Tuesday night with one out, Luisangel Acuña on first base, Jose Azocar lines a single into center field, and Acuña had to hold up because he wasn't sure if it was going to fall or be caught. And usually when that happens, you go halfway. If it's caught, you go back. If it drops, you move to second. Station to station baseball. Acuña went to third base on that play. That was incredible. The Mets are so aggressive on the bases. They are always looking to take the extra base. They are always making every 90 feet count. Mendy told us it's just an overarching philosophy of the Mets. Aggressiveness on the bases, put the pressure on the opposing defense, and some bats are starting to heat up. I want to talk about 8 and 9 in the lineup. The 8-9 hitters in the Mets lineup, this entire homestand, 380 on base percentage. So you look at Pete Alonso, 26 RBI. You look at the season that Francisco Lindor is off to, the start he's off to, driving in all these runs. These guys are coming up with runners on all the time because the bottom of the lineup in the 9th inning on Wednesday, 2 outs, Acuña singles, Luis Torrens singles. Now, Lindor doesn't get a hit. We go to extras. But had those 2 guys not singled, the lineup wouldn't have moved up the way it did. It might not be Soto, Alonso, Vientos, and Marte in extra innings. The bottom of the lineup has been huge for more than a week. I just went back this homestand, but the bottom of the lineup has been massive for the Mets. That's what makes it such a deep lineup.
Yeah, I mean, like, if Luis Torrens doesn't get that hit, then he ends up being the runner on second. You don't have Lindor with the legs.
Another good point.
That was just another massive thing that I was so excited when we got Lindor up for that final thing because you know you have the speed coming in. And then you're going to lead off with Juan Soto backed up by Pete Alonso. I mean, and then we also, you can talk about those 8-9 hitters. Let's talk about the bottom of the lineup. We have to give credit to Brett Beatty.
Yes.
Brett Beatty has really turned the gas on in this last week and hitting his first home run of the year here at Citi Field.
Against Zach Wheeler, by the way.
Against Zach Wheeler, which is, I turned to Hunter after that and said, I never, anything off of Zach Wheeler. Remember that playoff game? Remember when it was Kodai Senga going up against Zach Wheeler? We were sitting there watching that game and you were just like, there's nothing you could do against this guy, it feels like.
Yeah, premier pitcher.
Did you know did you see the stat about in every single pitch that has been tracked by Zach Wheeler in the StatCast era, only like 3 balls have been hit for home runs, 113 miles or more?
Great swing back. I mean, we know that Brett Beatty has it in him.
I think Mike Mayer tweeted that. I just want to give credit because I think it was Mike Mayer who I saw tweet that.
I'm sure a great feeling for Brett Beatty to put that ball into the Coke corner like he did.
The splash zone now. That's the beware of flying balls if you're sitting in the Coke corner.
Speaking of splash, I mean, on this homestand, we had not 1 but 2 body armor showers. Francisco Lindor on Friday. Jesse Winker didn't really get Starling Marte in the postgame with Steve Gelbs.
Zeke did. I think Allen got hit more than anybody.
Yeah, I also feel like you got to respect Marte. Maybe he doesn't want it, so maybe you don't do that. But yeah, for Brett Beatty, a huge moment for the bottom of the lineup to continue to come through. And another theme in this series was 2-strike hitting. The Mets had 13 hits in the series with 2 strikes, including Pete Alonso's game-tying double in extra innings. We talked about Luis Torrens. and his big hit on Tuesday night. The Mets in their approach, they don't strike out a lot. The arms generate a ton of strikeouts. The Mets have one of the highest team ground ball rates as a staff, one of the lowest fly ball rates as a staff. So we talk about the lack of home runs the Mets have allowed as a pitching staff this year. I don't want to say it's fully sustainable to remain where it is. I think they've allowed 10 home runs in 24, 25 games, whatever it is now. That's a crazy low home run rate. But the sample's starting to grow, and it's becoming a trend that the Mets just do not allow many fly balls as a staff. Not a lot of hard hit balls like we talked about with Jeremy Hefner, like we've talked about for the last couple weeks.
Every week we're doing a top 5, and we usually bring up how 2 of the guys in that series gave up 0 barrels. But no, man, this series, this whole homestand was incredible to watch. And I mean, look, we brought up already the day game having this packed crowd, but Monday night was not a nice night weather-wise. Monday night was cold. It felt like it could rain, but this place was still packed. And then Tuesday night, you have the first, like, perfect baseball weather game of the year.
Beautiful sky.
Beautiful sky. It was the first. Look, Citi Field, I'm going to say Citi Field has the best skies in baseball.
Fenway's good, too. Fenway's good, too. It was a beautiful night.
There's nothing like that purple and pink Citi Field sky.
It was a special sky.
The My Girls this week, too. I know we talked about it last week, but the My Girls today. I want to bring up a few. I'll bring up the top 2 crowd moments of the series. The My Girls throughout the entire day today, and the Let's Go Soto chants.
Yeah, and Juan Soto, you know, he continues to work through things, continues to get on base. The Mets being 18-7 and 5 games up in the NL East without Juan Soto fully being what Juan Soto is going to wind up being for the Mets in 2025. That's a scary proposition for the rest of baseball. That's a very scary proposition for the National League East and the teams that are now chasing the Mets. Because we said it in the last episode, I'll say it again. It's coming for Juan Soto. It is absolutely coming. So, that's exciting also. The fact that Soto hasn't fully heated up yet. He is going to, and once he does, whoo boy, watch out.
Now, we did this a lot last year. I think we should bring this back going forward. The question of the episode.
What's the question of the episode, Vito?
The question of the episode is, when did Citi Field become an absolute house of horrors for the Phillies?
So there's one moment that I go back to. It's 2022. The Mets are 20-7 at Citi Field against the Phillies going back to 2022. That includes the NLDS in 2024. I go back to that Nick Plummer home run. The Nick Plummer game-tying home run in the 9th inning, that Sunday night game, I think is Memorial Day weekend. Eduardo Escobar had the walk-off hit. The Mets dominated the Phillies in 2022, both home and away. They had the huge comeback in May of 2022 on the road. And then August of that year, the Mark Canha game, if you recall.
Well, I was going to say, the combined no-hitter.
The combined no-hitter, that's another good one. So
that started off 2022. That was, look, I want to bring off how hot that team started to this team. In 2022, this team just got off to a wild start against the Phillies, and it felt like this team was on a train that was not going to stop moving.
Right, and the Phillies weren't the team that caught the Mets. It was the Atlanta Braves that caught the Mets.
And they still won 100 games.
They did still win 100 games. They did it in a much different way. That team started the year without Jacob deGrom. He didn't pitch until August. Max Scherzer was in and out. He had some obliques, some back, some neck issues. This Mets team is different. This Mets team is deeper. This Mets team, the depth goes into the minor leagues. I know a lot of people have been enjoying watching the post-game show down there in Philadelphia, NBC Sports Philadelphia. What's being said. It's been a rough go for the Phillies. Like I said at the top of the episode, I think the Phillies have some flaws they need to work on. The Phillies strike out a lot. We saw that in the postseason last year. And it was a challenge for the Mets once they faced the Dodgers, who don't strike out that much because the Dodgers are relentless. The Dodgers keep coming. That lineup keeps coming. The Phillies get a little thin once you get past 4. Castellanos, we know his flaws. We know he's a big chaser. We know he's a big first pitch swing guy. We know Bryson Stott struggles against lefties. Bryce Harper, I don't know what it is about Bryce Harper at Citi Field, and I'm not trying to push my luck here, but Bryce Harper has not done much at Citi Field as a member of the Phillies whatsoever. The Mets contain Kyle Schwarber. I remember we talked with Edwin Diaz last year, and we asked him who he loves to strike out. Mentioned Bryce Harper. Got Harper in a big spot to end the game on Monday night. On Wednesday, got Schwarber looking. Got Harper to ground out to end the 9th inning. So, the Mets have done a great job with those guys. And like I said, Alec Boehm's off to a pretty bad start for his standard, an all-star in 2024. The Phillies are also getting a little bit old, Vito. Aaron Nola, who the Mets have dominated, he has an ERA over 8 going back his last 3 starts against the Mets, going back to that Friday night game. I think it was September 13th last year when Alvey put one off the foul pole at Citizens Bank. He's not young. There's a lot of wear and tear on that arm. The Phillies have made playoff runs the last 3 years. Same with Zach Wheeler. We saw Christopher Sanchez on Tuesday. He was on a pitch limit. Ranger Suarez is rehabbing. He's coming back. He's a big part of that Phillies rotation. But this Phillies team, man, you listen to WIP, you know, it's, I don't want to say it's Eagles talk yet, but we got the NFL draft coming up on Thursday. So
you can't be careful. Look, you can't. I will, after last year, what we saw the Mets do, what we saw the Braves do in 22 and 21, and what we saw the Mets do last year, I'll never count any team out of a playoff
they're
race.
getting frustrated with the Phillies in Philadelphia. Let's put it that way. They're frustrated as heck.
And I think, look, like, again, not to poke the bear, but I think there's a reason the Phillies didn't make a big push for a player like Juan Soto. I think that there was.
Well, I mean, there's a couple reasons. Well,
look, money is one thing.
Yeah, that's
money's
one of them.
one thing. But like, I think that there's an obvious, like, there's an inch toward we have to start preparing for the future, right?
Sure. I mean, look, they have Bryce Harper on a huge deal. They have Kyle Schwarber on a huge deal. Nick Castellanos is not cheap. JT Real Muto is not cheap.
There's a downswing.
Real Muto is off to a rough start. It's not an overly athletic team. It's not a very versatile team. You know, the guys who are in their positions, those are their positions. It's a team that's been together for a long time. Are we going to count them out? Absolutely not.
No.
They've got tons of pop. We know that. Trey Turner's not off to the best start.
Do you remember when we spoke to Todd Zalecki last year? Do you remember when he pointed out something about Bryce Harper that neither me or you...
Yeah, his stats at Citi Field.
Specifically his home runs at Citi Field. That he'd only hit 3 home runs at Citi Field.
Yep.
Which I'm going to say, I don't think it's changed since then.
No, as a member of the Phillies. That's as a member of the Phillies. Yeah, going back to the Nats days. And look, Bryce is a great ball player. The Phillies are, you know, very lucky to have him.
Yeah.
He's really a great contract also when you think about things.
He's done a lot for the Phillies I mean, like, I think he's done a lot for the culture of that team.
Definitely.
And I've said this about Bryce Harper before. I think Bryce Harper has done a lot for baseball in general. Bryce Harper was the first guy to push that narrative of, like, players should have fun. Players should have personality.
Players should make banana bread. Orion Kirkering, a guy that really struggled against the Mets in the postseason last year. He struggled on Tuesday night as well. The Mets have really had a lot of success against that Phillies bullpen. I'm missing Jeff Hoffman. The Mets really beat up on Hoffman in the postseason last year. He's now a Blue Jay. But with Zach Wheeler, it was about kind of like game 1 of the NLDS, just get him out of the game, get into the Philly bullpen. We saw Matt Strahm, a guy that had a lot of issues in the postseason last year. So the Mets move on. They're going to D.C. for a 4-game set, a much-deserved day off on Thursday. The bullpen can rest. Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek, A.J. Minter, who continues to be lights out, by the way. All those guys will be fresh. We'll see what the news is with Edwin Diaz. I know Carlos Mendoza, after the game on Wednesday, said it was a little hip cramp, so we'll see what the case is there. Early on, good news, but you never know with a hip cramp. And the Mets couldn't be feeling any better. And for the Phillies, you know, the Mets send the Phillies down the turnpike. The Phillies not feeling very good about themselves, I'm sure. Just, a homestand that couldn't have gone any better. I don't think there's any other way to put it.
No, and again... you can't focus on other teams, and you can't you can't poke a sleeping dog, because the Phillies got off to a bad start in 2022 also, and look what ended up happening that year. So again, this is not victory lap of this means the Mets are, we're not pulling a certain we're not trying to be a certain midday radio host right now.
No, I think we're enjoying what was an incredible 3-game series against the Phillies. One that many people...
That tweet's coming soon, by the way.
One that many people had
tweet's
circled.
coming soon.
We'll see. One that many people had circled as the real first litmus test for the Mets. A great homestand. You know, they sweep the Cardinals, who had taken 2 or 3 from the Phillies prior to. So there are so many things to like about this Mets team.
Yeah.
Like we said, a different hero every night. Like we said, they beat you in so many different ways. Strong defense. The bullpen's been great. The starting pitching's been great. The bats are starting to get going. The lineup's deep. It's coming from all over. You got Pete Alonso, who's off to this just otherworldly start. Francisco Lindor off to this otherworldly start. I think Keith Hernandez said it. The Mets have 3 potential Hall of Famers in the lineup right now between Pete, Soto, and Lindor. It's a third of the lineup. That's crazy when you think about it, but it's true. And then you got Mark Vientos, who still really hasn't gotten going yet. Almost hit an opposite field home run on Tuesday night. He's going to start. He's going to get going. You got McGill. You got Alvarez coming back soon. On Friday is the plan in D.C. So the Mets headed down. They're staying in the Amtrak corridor, going to Nationals Park
For just a quick trip. And
4
then
games,
they come back.
and then they'll be challenged by the Diamondbacks. So we're off to a great start. A team that's probably going to be a force to be reckoned with in the National League throughout the season. Excited to see how the Mets match up with the Diamondbacks. They had some thrilling games last year, especially when the Mets went to Arizona in August, if you guys recall that. But for the Mets and the Nationals, Got to think about James Wood, who's off to a great start for the Nationals. Opposite field power, of course, Mets fans familiar. James Wood made his major league debut against the Mets last year. This Nationals team is sneaky. And the Mets are going to see Mackenzie Gore on Friday. Always gives the Mets issues. They're going to see Mitchell Parker, I believe, on Monday, the final game of that series. So it's going to be an interesting series. A lot of Mets fans, I'm sure, down in D.C. as the Mets get away for a little bit and look to keep it rolling against the Nationals in our nation's capital.
And you brought up Keith Hernandez saying that there's 3 potential Hall of Famers on this lineup right now. But let's look a little closer in the driver's seat. And we talked about this in the last episode, but we have a bunch of potential all-stars on this team right now. And the reason
you guys need to vote, by the way.
And that's
start voting.
Well, you can't start voting.
Yeah,
but get ready. I want you to get ready. Every day I want you to start waking up, go to MLB.com and just getting ready to attack that.
When I say start, I mean the voting hasn't been as robust as it could have been over the last few years. These guys, man, this team, and I know Mets fans are going to, because the support that the fans are putting behind this team right now is different than anything we've seen before, especially this early in a season. But that's what happens when ownership commits to winning like the Cohen family has done. When you go out and you make the splash and you bring in a Juan Soto and you invest in the little things and the big things, and you've got strong leadership with ownership and David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza, and on the business side of things, the marketing, everything is clicking right now. I don't want to sound cocky here, Vito, but we've got it going on. And I really think in many ways the Mets are the envy of Major League Baseball. And that's so cool. It's so fun. People are seeing what's going on here. And it's like, holy crap, I wish we had that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I listen to different radio shows every day. I see different tweets every day. Different shows on ESPN and MLB Network where people are just saying something special is happening at Citi Field, and it goes back to last year to now. But Mets fans, every year you complain and you say how upset you are and how Lindor deserves to be a Gold Glove winner. That's not something that we the fans can control.
No.
But what we the fans can control is Francisco Lindor being an All-Star game starter, Pete Alonso being an All-Star game starter, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, all those guys. And this isn't, what I'm about to say is not a knock on anybody, but it's something I want to point out. Guys that have been an all-star, that have been an all-star as a Met before Francisco Lindor, Ty Walker, Starling Marte, those are guys that got it before Francisco Lindor. I feel like we need to right that wrong. Francisco Lindor is a guy that should be wearing that Mets logo in the Midsummer Classic.
100%. I mean, a lot of it, obviously, if you don't get the vote, it comes down to manager choice or however they even do it now.
He's gotten off to slow starts in the past, but this year's different. This is the year.
I mean, Francisco is one of the best players in baseball. You go back to last year, no one has a higher F4 than Francisco Lindor, going back to when he moved to the top of the lineup. That brilliant move by Carlos Mendoza, the perfect leadoff hitter. So vote. Vote. That's it.
Get ready. June, the voting starts. You got to vote for our guys. And I think we're going to have 3 starters, and I think it's not going to end there.
It very well might not. I mean, Max Kranick, who, by the way, I don't know if you realize this, he has rookie eligibility. He's technically a rookie.
He does?
Yeah, he's technically a rookie. So, same with Acuña. I mean, that makes more sense. Yeah. Acuña came up in September, but you forget it. And last episode we were talking, and I said something, and I think it sounded like I was saying he's not a rookie. And what I meant by that was the experience that he garnered last year, coming up in the pennant race, playing in the postseason. I'm sure he doesn't feel like a rookie because of the experience he had last year.
Similar to Vientos, when Vientos came up at the very end of 22.
But I mean, Acuña had way more experience.
No, yes, but I'm saying that Vientos got that play.
He got to be around it. He got to be around it. But Acuña is a rookie, and he has been one of the better rookies in the National League. Another great series for Acuña, who continues to play a great second base, continues to get on base, continues to not strike out. Mendy said there's still a little chase there. I think only 9 strikeouts still this year, 6 walks. We talked about the great base running all season, all series long. And we talked about, is he a mainstay in the last episode? I don't see how he's coming out of this lineup. I mean, no one's asking me for my opinion, but he's been a godsend for this team because he's different. Yeah. Because he's different. And that's what you need. You need a variety of skill sets, because it's not always going to be, you can't always rely on that home run. If it's boom or bust, it's a tough sport to play. There's going to be a lot of bust. A team like the Phillies, the top of that lineup, not very fast, not very athletic. They rely on the long ball. Kyle Schwarber, he's not playing a position, and he's a home run hitter. That's what he is.
So in the last episode, you brought up that the player that you would compare Acuña to most was Jose Reyes. And I remember last episode, I was like, I didn't see it. But then this last series, I was thinking about how when Luisangel Acuña gets on base, I'm so excited. I'm
electric.
so excited to see what he's going to do. I'm so excited to see how aggressive he's going to be, what amazing move he's going to do, what athleticism he's going to show up. And I was like, you know what? John's 100% right. Luisangel Acuña gives me that Reyes feeling of I love watching this guy just run the bases.
I'm surprised by how much he's been putting the ball in play. And I know David Stearns had press availability before the Phillies series started. And, you know, he was asked about Acuña and his performance and if David was surprised by it. And David didn't really say no. And he alluded to the body of work that we saw from Luisangel Acuña in AAA last year. And a lot of the attributes, he was chasing a whole lot more. You know, the numbers weren't close to what they are right now. And I know Acuña, when he came up last year, said he's simply seeing the ball better in the major league stadiums. The lighting's better. And you have the third deck. And that kind of, you know, for him, helps him visualize the game better. Maybe the Mets are a little bit surprised by the kind of player that Luisangel Acuña has become at the major league level. But no matter whether they expected it or not, they are getting an incredible contribution up the middle, a very athletic player, fast, plays the game in the direction that the baseball is going. We know he has a little bit more pop than we've seen. The home runs are going to come. And, you know, we saw him with a big hit in the ninth inning on Wednesday. He had, I think, a 9-10 game hitting streak that was broken recently, but still getting on base. I think he's been on base at 12 straight games now. So, like I said, godsend for the Mets.
And you bring up the differences in a AAA ballpark versus this. This isn't in our interview, but we were talking to Jeremy Hefner after we stopped recording, and we just asked him about Sacramento, and we were just like, what was it like to play there? And he said, it's actually crazy. You have to like look at it as a whole different environment, the way the ball interacts, the actual physics of a minor league ballpark versus a major league ballpark. Who would have known that having a third tier changes the wind and the physics?
Yeah, no, that's a thing. I mean, StatCast measures wind impact on a baseball, and, you know, there are some balls that would travel 5, 10, 15 feet further because of wind if it's a windy day, depending on when the wind is blowing, the direction the wind is blowing in. So it all matters. And, you know, people compare AAA, major leagues. You know, the first month and a half in Syracuse, it's freezing if you're playing at home. You go to a lot of snowing. You go to a lot of cold weather cities. We know the rule differences. The ABS there. And I think Luisangel Acuña probably just had some growing pains. And, you know, the Mets didn't rush him. And again, we always talk about this. Young players, how do you get the most out of them? I think a good theory, a good philosophy is make them earn it. Make them earn it. Don't hand it to them. Make them earn it. The Mets have a center fielder right now with the Syracuse Mets. His name is Drew Gilbert. Drew Gilbert's trying to make his major league debut. And he's trying to earn a spot. And is there a spot on the roster right now? Maybe not. But Drew's going to get a chance at some point. Mm-hmm. And when he does, he's going to have to earn his keep. He's going to have to earn his major league at-bats. And that's what you can do when you have a deep team. When you have a deep system, you have that ability. Michael Conforto in 2017. You know, the Mets really tried to jam Conforto in 2016. They wanted him to be the guy. They didn't have a backup plan for Conforto. And in 2016, it didn't work out for Michael Conforto. In 2017, Michael Conforto didn't have a guaranteed job coming out of spring training. And he was an all-star that year. He earned it. Mm-hmm. I think we're seeing that with Luisangel Acuña. And there's a bunch of other young players that we could be seeing earning it too. So you want to get into future of Flushing real quick?
Yeah, man. I mean, first off the bat, we got to talk about Jett Williams. Jett Williams went 3 for 5 with a triple on Tuesday. And Jett is a guy that every Mets fan should be tracking. Every game, every time the Rumble Ponies are out there, you should be seeing what is Jett Williams doing today.
Yep. Last episode, we talked about it. We only mentioned him because he's been so hot recently. And it's so great to see Jett just wreaking havoc and being the great, great ball player that he can be. His teammate, Nick LaRusso, former Maryland Terp, first base, third base, 391 on base percentage, a guy that set the Big Ten record for single season RBI. So a guy with a big bat in Double-A, taken by the Mets a couple years ago, 2023 draft. He's been off to a great start. Jonah Tong pitched on Tuesday. 9 strikeouts for the Rumble Ponies. Tong allowed a first inning home run, but he settled in. Dominant stuff. We've talked about Jonah Tong a lot here on the show. You want to take it away the rest of the way?
Yeah, man. Anthony Nunez with 13 strikeouts and 7+ innings of work. And then Nate Dome with 4 innings, 7 strikeouts, and a single run on Tuesday. So the minor leagues are just buzzing.
Yep, you got Dom Hamill pitching for the Syracuse Mets on Wednesday. They played a doubleheader. I believe they played game 1 already, and Dom Hamill's pitching game 2. You got Yoel Diaz on the mound for the Brooklyn Cyclones. Every day, guys. I know the Mets are really exciting, and it's nice because when the season doesn't go as well, that's when you focus on minor leagues and you talk about the future. And
that was 23.
It was. And you know what? We're talking about Acuña, And you think about the trade deadline and the philosophical commitment the Mets made to rebuilding by offloading Verlander and Scherzer. They could have kept both of those guys. Scherzer had, I think, an option on his contract. Verlander was under contract for another year. The Mets could have run it back. They chose to start over in the rotation. Of course, David Stearns wasn't even here at the time, but Steve Cohen made a philosophical decision to build it the right way. He's been trying to do that since day one through the draft, scouting, investing where it matters, building from the ground up. We keep talking about it. Nolan McLean's a guy who can make an impact for the Mets here this season at some point. It's all coming together with the major league talent, the guys that are acquired via trade or free agency or have been here, Pete Alonso, and a lot of these minor league players who are starting to make that big league impact. It's all happening at once. I can't wait. There's a couple huge series coming up in May. The Cubs come to town, Mother's Day weekend, Friday the 9th, Saturday the 10th, and Mother's Day, that's an 11:30 game, I believe, 11:05 on Roku. And the Dodgers may...
Pumped for that, by the way. I love an 11.
Yeah, get out of here at 2 p.m. You have the whole day. It's going to be sick. And then the Dodgers, May 23, May 24, and May 25. Right now, the Dodgers are playing the Cubs. So it's the Dodgers, it's the Cubs, it's the Mets, it's the D-backs.
It's also the Pirates. And I mean, maybe we get lucky. Maybe you get to come here and see a Paul Skeens.
I don't want to see Paul Skeens.
I know you don't.
I don't want to see Paul Skeens. That's not getting lucky. That would suck. You're lucky if you don't see him.
I understand that.
No, I want to win. I don't want to see Paul Skeens.
Fine, but I like watching, like, you know what? I will say this.
Yeah, so watch on MLB TV.
It was
I don't
always-
need to see Paul Skeens City Field.
It was always great when the when like there were guys in the AL that would go to Yankee Stadium, like
Bonds.
like going to watch Verlander
Sure.
pitch for the Tigers against the Yankees. Like that always had me fired up.
Sure. Or Bonds hitting that tank job against Ted Lilly back in 2002.
Like I will go there to watch stuff, but you're right. But look, I'm saying there's a positive, right? If Paul Skeens does come here, at least you get to come see somebody that you're going to want to pay money, line up at the gate to come watch.
Hey, before we go, I said this in the last episode. I want to make this a thing. I think it has some legs. Some people picked up on it. Citi Field, baby. This place was Citi Field all homestand.
You know we said that last year, right?
Did we? I don't
Yeah.
remember that. I don't remember that. Also, appreciate you guys getting involved in the wave chatter. Whether you took Vito's side or my side, you know what? I just like a good debate. I like a good conversation. Opinions are opinions. You're not right. You're not wrong. There was a wave on Tuesday and Wednesday for sure. I think whether you anti-wave folks like it or not, the wave is going to be a thing. And again, we're doing it when we're having fun. Oh boy, did we have fun here this week against the Phillies.
Again, my big point was just don't do it when the Mets are batting.
That's fine.
don't do it when the Mets are pitching.
That's fine.
Do it when the opposing team is pitching.
That's fine.
That was my main point.
That's fine. I don't think people took it that way from you.
I also don't like it.
That was your main point.
My main point was I don't like it, but I was saying if you're going to do it at this point. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. But before we get out of here, we got to give a big shout out to PC Richard and Son.
Like you mentioned, Vito, we love PC Richard & Son. And a quick reminder for you guys to head to your local PC Richard & Son this week. They are local, many locations all over the place. They're family owned, and we trust them to have the guaranteed lowest prices, a friendly and knowledgeable staff. And that's what's important, right? You know what you want. You go in the store. They lead you in the right way. They're kind of like the Mets lineup. They're deep. They've got all different sorts of products. And you always go home happy.
Electronics, kitchen appliances. I mean, I'm shopping for stuff right now. I know that I'm going to a PC Richard because they have a beautiful showroom. You can shop online at PC Richard, but there's nothing like going to a store.
I'm a brick and mortar guy.
They're all over the place too. I mean, are you in Astoria? Guess what? You want to go see a movie? They're right across the street from the movie theater.
Beautiful.
You want to go to Target in College Point? Guess what? They're right next door to College.
Maybe you don't want to go to the movie theater. Maybe you want to build a home theater in your own place.
Well, thank you for joining us on Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. I'm Vito Calise. You can follow me on Twitter at Vito F. Calise, John at JMB9191, and we will see you guys next time at the Apple.